Our homework notes tonight are talking about the properties of squares. So a square has all the properties of a parallelogram, a rectangle, and a rhombus. So instead of just giving them to you, this is what I'd like for you to do. I want you to look back in your notes, look at all the properties of a parallelogram, then look at properties of a rectangle, so those additional properties, and then the additional properties of rhombus, and you're going to list out every single one of those properties so that when you look at it, we can see a square has every single one of these special properties, okay? So go ahead and list those out from your notes, pause the video, and then check back to make sure that you got them all. So pause the video now. Okay, let's check and make sure we got everything. So the opposite sides are congruent. We've got that. Opposite sides are also parallel. Opposite angles are congruent in a square. And we're going to notice that in a square, all the angles are right angles, so of course the opposite sides are congruent. The consecutive angles are supplementary, so next to each other they're going to add to 180. The diagonals bisect each other, so we can see that in this second picture. They cut each other in half. And they're also perpendicular, like in a rhombus. The diagonals bisect opposite angles. So this angle here, this corner, this diagonal cuts it into two equal pieces. So we see that with a little blue arc. Cuts it into equal pieces. There's also 4 right angles and then 4 congruent sides. So square has all of the properties of parallelograms, rectangles, and rhombi. In case you haven't figured it out yet, a square is a parallelogram, it is a rectangle, and it is a rhombus. It's a very special version of each one of these. So it's a rectangle that has 4 of the same sides. It's a rhombus that has 4 right angles, and it's a parallelogram that has 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So it's a specific version of each of those. So let's start off with our first example, okay? So we've got A, B, C, D, and we're going to say it's a square. And I'm going to tell you that AD equals 11. So let's draw our picture, and we can add that to our picture. So AD equals 11. And then we're going to find every single one of these. So we're finding a lot of side lengths, we're finding a lot of measures. Okay. Well, let's mark this picture how and what we know. So we know all the sides are congruent, right? We know that all the angles are right angles. We know that the diagonals bisect at a right angle. And then the diagonals bisect, so they cut each other in half. And let's see what we can get from that. So the first part is they want to know BC. Well, BC is here. All 4 sides of a square are congruent, so if that side's 11, BC also has to be 11. AC. So AC is the diagonal. So how could we find the diagonal of this square? Well, there's a couple things we could do. If I'm looking at AC, I see that as the hypotenuse of a right triangle. So I can kind of draw this triangle. I'm going to draw it separately. So that's A, that's C, and that's D. We know that's a right angle. We know that AD is 11. And AC, since it's a square, that'll also be 11. And AC is what we're trying to find. So let's use the Pythagorean theorem. This is our A squared, B squared, and then we're going to find C squared or find C. So let's try that. 11 squared plus 11 squared equals C squared. So let's see what we get. 121 plus 121 equals C squared. 242 equals C squared. So to find C, we're going to have to take the square root of both sides. So let's calculate that, the square root of 242. And if we round to the nearest tenth, we should get 15.6 equals C. So this is going to be 15.6. Okay. So that tells us the distance between A and C, or the length of AC. 15.6. All right, now they want to know BD. Well, the diagonals are congruent because my properties tell me that diagonals are congruent, so that's going to be the same as AC, 15.6. All right. I also need to label this center point. We're going to call this E, okay, that point in the middle. So what if I want to find EC? How could I do that? Well, I know that AC is 15.6, right? And EC is half of that. So we're just going to take 15.6. We're going to divide it by 2. Let's see what we get. Should get 7.8. All right, let's find some angles now. DAB. So DAB. Remember, they name them. It's kind of like we trace the letters in the order that they're written. So we start at D, go to A, and then go to B, and that creates this right angle right here. So that's on a corner. That's a right angle. So how many degrees is that? 90. That's going to be 90 degrees. Okay, then they want AEB. So AEB, this angle. Well, that's where the angle bisectors, or I'm sorry, the diagonals bisect, and they bisect at a right angle. So that's also going to be 90 degrees. CBD. Okay. CBD. So it's this angle right here. So that's definitely not 90 degrees, but it's part of it. And remember when we said that the diagonals bisect opposite angles? That means that the diagonals cut this angle into 2 equal angles. Well, what do we know this corner is equal to? We know it's equal to 90, so if we cut that in half, we're going to be left with 45 degrees. And that's something we're going to notice in a square. Whenever you're looking for these angles at the corners, like half of it, it's always going to be 45 because the corners are always 90 degrees. So lastly, we're looking at BAC. So it's this angle right here. That's just half of 90. It's also 45 degrees. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to post a question after this, and then you'll complete the question on your own, and you will submit your answers in the Google form. So look out for number 2. So here is number 2. This is the problem that you're going to attempt on your own. I'm going to tell you that PQRS is a square. We're going to say that TR equal to 17, so TR is 17 here. And then you're going to find PR, QS, QT, PQ, and then the measure of angle PRS and the measure of angle STR. So just a reminder, the measure of angle PRS is here, and STR is there. So think about that. So you're going to submit your answers in the Google form. Good luck.